FM, and welcome to the first show here, and with Paul Hedderman, and it's his new show, Much Ado About Nothing, which I think he might have ripped off from an author you might have heard of. I think he was from England in the 16th century. But just to welcome you to Paul Hedderman, and you can find his website at zenbitchslap.com if you've never been there before for any more information. Paul, how are you?
Good, good. You?
That's good. Yeah, I'm really well. So this is the first of our shows together, and I guess it's an opportunity for
Maybe the
people
last also.
tuning in, people who are coming in from all over the world who are interested in non-duality and your take on non-duality. So first of all, let's just do as a bit of a starter for 10, as they say in Europe. It's a darts conversation. What's the exact nature of the wrong as you see it?
Well, from the idea of non-duality, there isn't a wrong.
Okay.
That's in the other aspect of recovery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess, but from my point of view and my understanding and my limited understanding of non-duality, is that we believe we kind of mesmerized into believing that that we are our thoughts, and that we're conjured along, and we're sort of mesmerized into these things, and we believe our thoughts. Is that a kind of a true understanding of where you come from?
Well, the thoughts are used to imply a thinker, and then the thinker believes it has the thoughts.
Okay. So I'm just along for the ride. I have no grip on this.
You're a mental conclusion, really.
That's the nicest thing you've ever said to me. I'm a
Yeah.
mental conclusion. Okay. So I'm along for the ride, and I just sit there, and I believe that I'm the thinker,
Well,
but I have no.
the thing that feels it's along for the ride is the ride.
Okay. So
Yeah. The feeling of being Paul, the action figure, that's the ride. It's not on a ride, it is the ride. That's the
I've heard.
problem. It wants to get off of this ride, but it thinks it's the other rides that it needs to get off of. So it keeps trying to get off of the other rides, and it stays the ride. Yeah. And it gets frustrating until it lands in non-duality. Then it really gets fucked up. Yeah.
So what ride am I on?
What?
What ride am I on?
I don't know. It's a verb. It's not a ride, it's riding. Yeah, so.
Okay. So just that's a nice little introduction. If you've got any questions, I believe that you can ask your questions on Facebook and on YouTube. Send them in to us, and you can ask Paul yourself. It's a Q&A, and we're going to be here for quite a while. So please feed them in if you've never been here, and I can see there's already some people in that some faces I can recognise. So any questions for Paul, send them in to us. So Paul, can you just give us a little bit of understanding about your journey? I think you obviously come from the recovery community, and you've gone more heavily into non-duality. Can you give us a little bit of an understanding for people who might not know you? I'm sure there are people who know you, but just to give them an introduction to Paul Hedderman.
Well, let's not go. I don't want to introduce to Paul Hedderman. We want to
Okay.
introduce to the message. Yeah, yeah. Paul
Okay.
Hedderman is an accessory. Yeah, it's not the. Yeah, so let's just go to a simple look at the definition of non-duality. Yeah,
Okay.
so yeah, non means not, which is a negation of something that comes after it, right? So non-duality. So it's not two. That's the message of non-duality. The message of non-duality isn't anything about non-duality, it's about duality. Yeah. So the message of, and what it's about duality is, it's a negation of duality. So let's boil down, and if you get an understanding of duality as how things move here, you can start recognizing its tides, its low and high tides. So let's say there was a life period of addiction, and then it goes into recovery. That's a movement, yes? So there's a contraction, then there's an expansion, yeah? There's no one who contracted and there's no one who expanded. It's just expansion, contraction, yes? And then maybe you'll boil it down to the subject objectness of your own experience, and your own, and not your own, but the experience we're having is a dualistic experience. an interpretation of this and that, yes and no, and then subject object. Yeah? Yeah. So let's say something's moving through all of us right now. You can't even say it's through because it's not somewhere and it moves somewhere else. It's just, let's say, a spacious thing. Let's give it the term consciousness, though it's not defined by a term. But let's say there's this idea of consciousness that is causing an experience by coming through certain facilities like eyes, ears, nerves, yes, and is having an experience. So there's a seeing, there's a hearing, there's a feeling, there's a tasting, there's the touching, yes? Yeah, all right. So this seeing, hearing, feeling, tasting, touching doesn't have an opposite. It's not of duality, yeah?
Okay.
There's just seeing, there's not seeing, and then there's a non-seeing. There's just seeing. Seeing, hearing, feeling, tasting, touching. And in your experience, hopefully you've come to the conclusion there's not much volition involved, yeah? So I didn't come to at 7 in the morning and start coaxing myself to get ready to start seeing by 8, yeah? My eyes were seeing, or there was seeing already, the lids opened up, and then I saw the stage, so to speak, yeah? But there was seeing before the curtain opened, yes? So there's this subjectness, let's call it, experiencing itself appearing as other. Yes, let's put it that way. But listen to what's going on during the day in the narrative we're listening to. Sometimes you're seen as the thinker, yeah? Sometimes you're seen as the thought about. So you're a movement of subject-object all day, yeah? This is the confusing thing. See, the confusing thing is the subject signs up for a 3-week retreat. The subject is going, man, I'm going to transcend this fucking object. I'm going to go to another level, and I'm going to experience the freedom from the body by, doing all this work, yeah? So the subject thinks it's great, and it has a view of the retreat that the objectness of you doesn't have that view. To the object, it's a pain in the ass, figuratively and literally, because it's going to try to sit for 13 hours on its ass, and it's going to get uncomfortable. So the subject brings you to retreat, but now you start having an objective experience while you're sitting in the meditation hall. And you ever see it when you walk in? It's beautiful, very spacious, a little square with a nice little pillow. Each person goes to their little enclosed space, maybe for the first day. The next day, there's some kinds, people start acquiring pillows. You don't even know how they get them. And they're starting to build to get their left cheek off the ground because that's all they're fucking dwelling on is their cheek because it hurts. See? After a while, you come in, there's just mountains of pillows. And then some people just say, fuck it, and they start laying down. Now, you may be driven by some form of spiritual pride, but you're quite envious of them, really. You feel like, I'd like to join the horizontal group, but no, I'm going to do this. So there's a thing going on, a subject-object interpretation and experience that is inherently cognitively dissonant. Yeah, it doesn't go. Yeah, so you're trying to sign up one aspect of this activity to go along with the other aspect, and it doesn't go well. Yeah, you're not of that. Yeah. See, you're not of that. That's the message of non-duality. See, if there's a fact and then a lot of assumed facts being entertained while that fact is available, we don't need to talk about the fact. We need to talk about the assumed fact because the assumed fact is playing a more dominant role than the fact. Yeah? The problem isn't hearing the message, it's who's hearing the message. Yeah? So you've got to realize the mental state is very, very fast. It comes up very quickly in time. And I humbly, through observation, I do not believe there's any process that can get before that process. So as you're starting to sit on the pillow, the head has already claimed you as the meditator. Yeah? So while all this meditation is going on, the mental state is using it to imply a meditator. And that's usually what you leave the retreat as. You don't leave the retreat as the accumulation of meditating. You leave with an identification as a meditator. Yes? That's what needs to be pointed out. We don't need to hear, why do you want to try to describe the indescribable? We're seen as the indescribable, the incomprehensible, the ununderstandable. Then why do you want to try to describe it? Let's describe what we can describe, which is the activities of what we're not. Yeah? So hopefully you'll see the activities of what you're not, and you'll get like a boomerang hit of what you are, which is the seeing of what you're not. That's what happened. I went to satsang with the same format. I went to meditation halls, and I went to fucking the day. I went to vacations. I went to work. It all started with me, and then me tried to get out of me in some form or another. Yeah? It failed. I thought certain paths would have an immunity to that, but spirituality doesn't. There's tons of addiction being expressed through spirituality. Tons of it, yeah? Because the same thing is going on no matter where you're at or what you're doing. It doesn't mean it has an effect, because you can see it. When you see it from what you are, its effect gets minimized. If you don't see it from where you are, you're looking from it, yeah? And then if you're looking from it and you get introduced to non-duality and you don't have those warnings about what arises when you're introduced to anything, it's going to claim to be the hero of non-duality. And now basically what it tries to do is try to be a non-self as a self. So then you get the monotone, the loving gazes, the very thing, everyone sits there, oh, they must be in the presence. No, they're not. They're just sitting there. So therefore, and then exactly what happens. Let's hear about Paul Hedderman. I don't want to hear about Paul Hedderman. Okay. I hear about Paul Hedderman under the name of Yosinda. Yeah, it's the same. I'm tired of hearing that station. Let's hear what's moving through Paul and moving through David. Yes, please.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is not about, the message isn't, I'm not trying to get through to anyone here. I'm trying to actually get through you, not to you. Yeah, I'm trying to get the message. See, if you are that, which is the assumption of non-duality, you are what you're looking for. Yeah, that's the assumption, isn't it?
Yes.
The assumption is why you have the feeling when you arrive at the other shore that you had never left, because you are the other shore. Yeah. So basically, you are that, and because of that, looking for it, using that doesn't work. Yeah. Trying to get it doesn't work. Looking to have an experience doesn't work, because it's what you are. Yeah, you can experience everything that you're not. You can't experience what you are, because you'd have to be something else, and you're not. So this is a whole different ball game. And when you're introduced to non-duality, because of its stubbornness of being just that, you are right at this moment what you're looking for. Yeah, it puts in what's looking, all that activity of looking for it, it puts it into a very stark contrast. This does not emphasize the you that's on the path. Non-duality does not emphasize the you that's going to purify. It doesn't. It negates all that. Yeah? So what happens is all of what you're not comes into stark contrast when it's seen from this message. That's the beauty of non-duality. It's a negation of duality. It brings out the duality so you can see it from what you are. Yeah? And then maybe you'll come to the exact conclusion you were hearing from those statements. You can't use the Buddha to seek the Buddha. Why is that? Why is that? Because you're the Buddha. That's why. Yeah? Huang Po, the great Zen master, maybe he was speaking to 5 people, 50 people, maybe he was on a Zoom in 1200, I don't know. But basically, he's going to everyone, all these different people with different names. He bypassed all that and he was talking right to the Buddha. He says, you can't use yourself to find yourself. Yeah, that's it. So if you're looking for the Buddha, therefore there must be an act of being identified as something other than the Buddha at play. That's what we're denying or negating. Not denying, but negating. Yeah? There is no one. There may be an activity that's going on, but that activity isn't you doing it. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is the point. We attempt to stay on, let's look at what we're not. It's easily to be seen because you're not it. Yeah? And you're prior to it, so you can see the mental state arise. You can see it. Yeah, because you're not a mental state. You're the field of awareness. So you have an ability to see what arises in the field of awareness. Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
You can. And the mental state is of time. You can see it because there's times where it's not moving. So you can see it when it's moving. Yeah? Yeah, that's the message. So someone talked to me yesterday and said, Paul, maybe you should start getting into guided meditations and stuff. But, we just been selling cod, it's like a fish since the beginning. We're going to just stick with cod. Yeah. I have great faith. I have great faith in the one product. Yeah. Just keep pointing out. See, when I was a kid, it blew my mind. I went to Catholic school, and they would always go over the 3 attributes of God, which was omnipresent, meaning it's always here, right? Omniscient, all-knowing, and omnipotent, all-powerful. So basically, I'd hear that, but then I couldn't believe, why am I not running into that which is everywhere? I must be in some point of everywhere, yeah? I'm running into people I don't want to run into, but I'm not running into God. What's going on? Well, in hindsight, there's a mental activity that's going on. Yeah, that's all. And it would be helpful if we were noticing it instead of looking from it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. If you notice it from non-duality, it's much different than looking from it about non-duality. Completely different. Completely. Yeah. Because if you're looking from that state, you're going to make non-duality a path. You are. It's got to happen. It has to. Because everything is molded to fit the system that you're taking yourself to be. While non-duality is negating that system, it's not trying to integrate into the system. This isn't about, now that you're awake, we're going to integrate into daily life. Give me a freaking break.
Sure. Okay, so we've got a few questions already. Just to remind everyone, if you're on YouTube or you're watching on Facebook, put your questions in the comment section and put them in here, and they'll be passed through here to in Zoom. And we've got a first question. I'm going to go to Eva, and Eva asks: in Buddhism, they focus on seeing emptiness, help other sentient beings find happiness, get enlightened for the benefit of others. Is that all futile?
Can you say that again? I missed the first part.
Sorry. In Buddhism, they focus on seeing emptiness, help other sentient beings find happiness, get enlightened for the benefit of others. Is that all futile since it's them doing it?
It's not futile. It'll affect others. But first of all, you can't see emptiness, obviously.
Okay.
Especially you're using emptiness to see emptiness. That's not going to work. Yeah. So what they're describing can be what you'll observe happens to you. Not as doing something, but as an effect of something else. Yeah. And nothing is right or wrong other than what comes before it. So Buddhism can be a beautiful expression, or it can be used to reinforce the sense of self. It's what's before anything we're into, yeah? It's not what we're into. Yes?
Mm-hmm.
This is why when you enter this idea, it's nice to have warnings, like, you know, the cigarette packs with the little warning. This could be hazardous to your physical health. Well, we should have these on the front page of books. This could be hazardous to your spiritual health. Yeah. Because you may be reading it as the person who wants to get out of the person that he isn't. Yeah. So then suddenly that book is used to reinforce the whole story. But to someone else, the book may open something up. It's not the book. It's not the Buddhism. It's us. Yeah. That's giving meaning to things.
I always love that analogy you use about Dracula. Do you know? I love. Do you want to repeat that for us? I love that one.
Well, yeah, in a way, Dracula would be willing to go out on vampire hunts to conceal that it's Dracula. What a better way to do it. So that the idea of what you're not is consumed by getting out of itself. That's the biggest form of being in it. Yeah. We have it in recovery. It's not written in the book of recovery, but it was an observation by people who were doing just what they were claiming or saying, which is self, trying to get out of self. Yeah. A mistaken identity, trying to get out of the mistaken identity, is a huge identification.
Okay.
These are like shoes you put out. Just see if they fit, wear them. If not, put on your fucking spiritual hiking boots or whatever. Or your marathon running shoes. These are more like slippers. They're not a call to arms, they're disarming. You hear the message and things become settled and clear, like blue is blue and red is red. Not by trying to make blue as blue, but you'll see it. You'll see the validity of the invitation. Yeah?
Okay. All right. So next question has come from Annie or Annie Me. What's the relationship between the thief and policeman and self can't get out of self? What is this other self, inverted commas, like that can be more difficult to see?
Well, it's like the dualism that we're talking about. So there's an appearance of self as an object that now you've noticed, and you maybe call it the bane of your existence, and that I have to get rid of it. Some people will call it ego, whatever, the devil, some possession. But that which is saying it's the seeing of that is an aspect of the same activity, yeah? So now it sees a part of itself as the object called self, and now it's seeing, and it's calling itself to be the observer of that object as the subject self. Yeah?
Okay.
Yeah. See, the funny thing is, usually the subject self isn't truly noticed until you see through the object self. So you recognize, you think, oh, I've hit pay dirt, I caught the thief, but then there needs to be a next recognition, which is, oh, wait a minute. Policeman is the thief also. Yeah. Yeah.
Hold on. It's me holding me. The thief is holding the thief. Yeah, hold on. Yeah.
This is the thing of duality is a movement. It's not just this or that. It's a movement of thising and thating. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's not a stagnant thing called duality. It's a movement. But if you see it, it's almost like the movement of water, but you realize it's contained in a low and highness. Yeah.
Like the tide, like you explained before you mentioned the tide.
Yeah. You recognize, you see the thing, the mental movement, its drive is to claim because it's actually not happening. It has to cling on to what's happening and ride that. So there's what's happening, yeah? There's the seeing, the hearing, the feeling, the thinking, the tasting, all this. And the mental state arises and claims the seeing, the hearing, the feeling, the tasting. And on the basic claiming of the conscious contact, now the seeing is interpreted as implying there's a seer. Yes? Now that all the hearing is interpreted as implying there's one hearer. all the feelings, one feeler. You see, that's the bondage of self. The bondage of self is reinforced by the claiming of the feelings, but it's wrapped up in the idea of being the feeler, and that feeler is pictured as a body, basically. Yeah? So when you're remembering a feeling from 4 years ago, you remember as a body having the feeling. When you had a vision 5 years ago and you're remembering, you're pictured as a body. Yes? So the whole system reinforces this idea of being the one and then pictures it as a body.
Okay.
So there's an activity going on. And so what I noticed is, without noticing this identification as a body, you may want to try to get out of the body. But in fact, you're trying to get out of the body as the body. Yeah? This is the dilemma. Yeah? Mm-hmm. Or we're trying to use the Buddha to seek the Buddha. It goes both ways, yes? Okay. This is the dualistic movement. This is what non-duality negates. It negates that. You're not there. You're not there in the expansion. You're not there in the contraction. Yeah? There's the joy of it.
So just on that, there's a couple of things, but just so the answer is to stop seeking, basically. Is that what you're saying?
No, the answer isn't to stop seeking, because if you stop seeking as a seeker, you're really going to fuck yourself up.
Damn.
No, it's to see you're not the seeker, and probably what will happen, the seeking will stop. Yeah. But trying to stop seeking as a seeker is another subtle form of seeking. It doesn't work. This is what I talk about, the self trying to become a non-self. Yeah. So now we get really, it's spiritual anus puckers, yeah? It gets widgets, and it trolls YouTube sites to fucking, you said I, you said me. Yes. Yeah, it gets to be like a non-dual Pharisee. It's a very painful situation.
It is.
Yeah. They haven't found a spiritual hemorrhoid cream yet. No. So
we could patent that, though. We could probably make a fortune, yeah?
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's look into it. Yeah.
Well, you just described it perfectly, or led to that, because this is what happens. The seeker format hears that it's no good to seek anymore, so now it tries not to seek, which is a form of seeking once again. Yes. Yeah? You can't get out of it because you're not in it. See, every premise in the system is you're in it. See, this is what happens in recovery. You don't become a self. You never were a self. The mental state, you already are a self. So basically, the only possibility being rooted in that belief that you are a self is try to get out of it. Now, some people do it in extreme ways, which is addiction and whatever. Others do it in subtler ways, which is spirituality in a lot of ways. Yeah. But basically, the premise is I'm in something, and that's where the freedom is before that. There's no freedom after the in. See, if that assuming fact is taken to be so, forget about it. You've got to see before it. Yeah, the freedom is before the bonding. You don't get freedom after the bonding. It's freedom before. Yeah.
So just on that as well, you use the word before ego, and I've heard that you don't necessarily like using that term. I think you use the word parasite. For people who haven't heard Paul before, I'm sure you have, most of you. Can you explain what that means? Why you prefer to use parasite as opposed to ego?
Well, parasite is just you're trying to describe something that we take to be so much of us as other. Really, we're trying to use the system against the system because imagery is the best form of communication. Yeah, so you're attempting to picture something that you intimately feel is about you or is you or you're doing it as something else. Yeah, because that possibility of seeing it as other leads to another possibility. Hey, I could be free from it. Yeah. If it ain't me, I can be free from it. You see, this is the dilemma. We're in an act of being identified, and then the freedom is always as that we're identified with, not from it. Yeah, where the only freedom is from it, not as it. That's why we need warnings, because something's going on that's turning, like Ramana says it beautifully, Ramana Maharshi, and I may be missing the whole spirit of what he said, but he says the same thing in a lot of different ways, in a lot of people's renditions of his teachings. But it's always this one premise, which is this: there's a presupposing of this idea that there's a non-existent thing existing. Yes, us, and then this non-existent thing taken to be that which is existing wants salvation for the non-existent thing, for it, not from it, but for it. Yeah, because the salvation from the non-existent thing is always available because it's non-existent. Yeah. There's not a minute you need to arrive at the salvation from the non-existent thing. You're in it. All right, so there's a presupposing. What does that mean? So the mental state assumes something, and what it assumes, it says it's already so. It gives you a feeling. So it assumes you're a self, but how it does it is says you already are one. Yeah, that's definitely a fact. You're a self. You're an independent, long-lasting, separate thing, and you need to get freaking help or something, yes? That's the premise, yeah? So there's this presupposing of this non-existent thing wanting to get salvation for itself. If this is the case, so this is the diagnosis, if this is the case, your spiritual practices themselves are reinforcing the non-existent thing. How can they destroy it? And you can't destroy a non-existent thing. So if you're wielding spiritual practices as a sword to vanquish something, you're giving a relevance to that something that doesn't deserve it. That's the warning. Does that mean everything you ever do in a spiritual context is being, used? No, but the mental state will claim it. But if you can see it, the heist won't occur. Yeah? The money won't leave the bank, so to speak.
Okay. Great. Okay, so
I went to satsangs and I heard descriptions of the indescribable. Paul, all you are is consciousness and all this and all that. It didn't help in a way because there was a mental activity claiming to be me, hearing all these messages about what I am, but really they were being held by what I'm not. It didn't go anywhere. Yeah, actually, it made it worse. Just look at your own experience. Maybe you never entered spirituality. Then you come in and you hear the word awakening. Yeah?
yes.
Wow. Now your head hears it and it starts using it to compare you with others. You're fucking, hey, how can he be awake? I've gone to more meetings than him and shit like that. Yeah, you would have been better off if you never heard the word awakening. You would have been, yeah? Because it's not that the awakening message is bad, it's what heard it, yes?
Yes.
That's what non-duality is a negation of. Same thing. You would have been better off if you never heard the word enlightenment. Even though one of the definitions is the cessation of all suffering, your head is using its interpretation of the word to cause suffering. How much evidence do you need? That one example should tell you everything.
So what's the process in order to attain that without seeking and just with, in not using those terms, but so what's the process? How do we get to that point?
The process, there's a lot of processes. It'll do what it wants to do. If it wants to sort of have a huge free sample or by reading a telephone book, it will. If it wants to do it by walking quietly around a statue for 108 times, it will. It doesn't matter. It's not what you're doing. It's before all that. Yeah. So it can express any way it freaking wants. See, listen. Let's say there's a woman or a man who's very lit up. All right.
Okay.
So people who are lit up, they have a lot of their fun and this and that. So the people that meet them think, all right, I'm going to do what that guy's doing to arrive at where that guy is. But he didn't arrive there by doing anything. He's expressing something by what's happening. It's not a path that's being laid out for you to follow. It's not going to take you where he is because you're already there. He's just expressing the relief of that. Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
You see how we read it and we can misconstrue? We can misconstrue an expression as a path. And then you try it and it doesn't work. This guy drinks tons of liquor, fucking goes to sleep. You drink some liquor and you end up in fucking jail. Yeah?
That's true. Yes.
Path, bro. You're not going to end up where he is because he didn't get there. This is the problem with this. We see everything from a fixed program. So you look at this. It's just, you put the same frame on it. Job, relationship, spirituality. They're all framed in the sense of self.
Yeah.
I went to I sort of came out of recovery. I was compelled to share stuff. I shared it with them, with people, and then we made a mistake. We put out a website, and then people from outside of recovery got in touch with me, and they asked me to come places, so I started to go. And then I saw addiction in spirituality. I saw it. It was the exact same as being at with some drug addicts. I saw the exact same thing. Actually, the drug addicts are smarter because at least they do get a rush, People put it off for maybe 4 lifetimes. I'm gonna, you know what I mean? It's never delivered. It's always promised. So I could see it. It was so obvious. Yeah, I could see it. And so I would talk about it. And then this person who had been at this facility for a week, and then they brought people in to speak at the weekend. And then I would speak about it for 40 minutes, and the person would get up and say, "Can you give me an example?" I went, "Voila! Right here, where what? You've been here for a fucking week." This is it. We don't see what we're in. We don't. Especially from being in it. You never fucking see it. Yeah? We don't. Just like we don't sense everywhere because it's always everywhere. The way we pick shit up is absence, appearance, absence, comparing, memory, this and that. We're relying on a system that can't get it. Yeah? That's the message of of duality, is the futility of trying to use what you are to find what you are. Hopefully you're at the end of it. I hope.
So,
You're not going to get it. It's awesome.
Yeah. Can't wait. So got a few more questions here from our people here in the Zoom room. Randy and Jill asking, just focusing on, you mentioned before about recovery, and I know it's well documented that you come out of the recovery community. In particular, 12-step programs such as AA focus on the maintenance of the spiritual condition. What is now different from that?
Well, you are a spiritual condition.
Okay.
What would be the highest form of maintaining a condition? Being one. You can't get a higher form of maintenance than being the condition that you want to maintain. You'll realize it's maintaining you. You're not maintaining it. Your whole little song and dance is predicated on that condition. The awareness that we are. That's the only way you can see your show. Yeah, you're not the source of light. You're a reflection. Okay. The idea of David and Paul is a pale reflection of light. Yeah? Yeah, so we are a spiritual condition.
Okay.
If you want to term it in reality, yeah.
Okay.
I'm not saying if you don't believe that, then you got to do what you need to do to have a sense of it. But if it's so to you, probably the best prescription you're on at that point is do nothing. Yeah. It maintains itself quite well. You don't have to do much. Light begets light, yes?
Mm-hmm.
Darkness trying to beget light is more fucking darkness, yeah? Light begets light. Yeah. But we take a mental assumption to be us, and now we're trying to become spiritual. Good luck with that. all we can go by, we're on a road that goes nowhere, yet we keep following the signs thinking we're going to arrive somewhere. The body mental condition isn't going to become spirit, because it already is. It's an appearance in spirit. Is the wave going to get absorbed in the ocean? When wasn't it absorbed in the ocean? It's always absorbed. All it needs to see is that it's not a wave. It doesn't need to find out it's an ocean. It is one. It just has this, it's just being ridden by this stubborn idea that it's a wave. It can only last for 80 years or 90 years, so don't worry about it, really. Really. In the eternal blink of an eye, this is nothing, really, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. So, yeah. That's why we use the term much ado about nothing. Because a lot of shit can happen, but in fact, it never leads to anything other than nothing. Yeah. Really?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So,
just the right.
This Zoom is much ado about nothing in a lot of ways.
Oh, thanks very much. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
So we've got some more questions here, Paul. So this is from,
Hold on, I'm going to put the light on in the room.
Sure. Okay. That was, thanks very much to Randy and Jill for asking that last question. I didn't mention you. Sorry about that. So, yeah, let there be light. There we go. Good. So Glenn J asks, how do I give everything, which is in caps, how do I give everything all the meaning it has?
There's no how in it. You just hear that and see if it's true or not for you.
Okay.
Yeah. You hear it and see if it's true or not for you. I was introduced to that from the course, and then it would ask you, hey, look around the room, not, vigilance, relaxed. And then when I looked around the room and my eyes came upon what later I'd call an armoire, there was nothing there. And then suddenly there was an appearance with a name on it. So I saw what was most interesting was the nothingness that precedes all the naming and the form. That was what I got out of that. I don't care how it works. I just want to see if it's happening or not. Yeah. You and I, all the meaning it has isn't something to study. It's to observe and see if it's true or not. Yeah. This isn't a study. This isn't something, you're not going to master the topic of anything. You're going to hear something and then hopefully it lands, and then observation will either support it or not. You'll just check it out. So obviously, a lot of the assumption that we're the volition or the doer of things, if you just stop and look at a simple situation, you'll realize that's made up. Yeah? Mm-hmm. There's doing, like there was a statement attributed to Buddha. I don't know if it's true or not, but he said events happen like this, deeds are done, but there's no individual doer thereof. That's not something I try to move towards. It's something I hear and then it tells me shit, yeah? It tells me if it's true or not through my own seeing. Not my own seeing, but through the seeing, yeah? Yeah, so I come I'm introduced to an idea, and then I come to the conclusion around it. Yeah? How? Through the pages of living. Not a book, but by living. I notice and I see, and then things hit a critical mass, and then I'm convinced of something that I was in denial of. Yeah? Like for me in recovery, I got struck sober, and even though it was a fact, it wasn't a fact for me that I was powerless over alcohol and drugs, and I'm not managerial quality. Something came in and went to the innermost, which is not in the head, and just, I was convinced that I was fucked, and that was it. It's never come up for review or debate for 30-something years. I didn't know until that time that I had the ability to be convinced, but I do. So I listened to what people said. It was applied to my own experiences, and I ended up being convinced of certain things. Yeah. And then in that convincing, life echoed it more and more. Yeah. So the yell occurred, and then forever since then, there's been a continual echo of the truth of what was noticed or said. Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And what I learned is not about what I am, but about what I'm not. And how it does its thing. Someone asked the how. You know, I could describe the movement of the mental state. I can see it. Yeah.
Okay.
And so I don't want to talk to you about what you are, because it'll be what you're not hearing about it. It doesn't do anything. I want to talk to you what you are about what you're not, because you can see that. Yeah? You're not going to you're not seeing shit from what you're not. You're not. You're not seeing shit. You think you are, but it's just a rehash, a redoing. It's just memory after memory being with different faces put on. Yeah? No. What we are is where the seeing is. Yeah. So.
Okay. So just a quick mini commercial break here. You're watching us Nothing FM. You're on YouTube, Facebook, and live here on Zoom. So if you've got any questions, please put them in the chat or in the comment section of whatever media you're watching it on. And I just wanted to say that Paul's actually having a virtual retreat this weekend, February the 20th and the 21st. There's still plenty of time to register. It's 3.5 days where you can go and have all the fun of the fair and all the different rides that Paul's offering. So they'll know that there's going to be there's quite an intense couple of days there. And Paul, you're looking forward to that? What's actually happening? Do you know?
Am I looking forward to it?
Yes.
Of course not.
No. Good. That's a positive, very positive advert break. Thanks very much. Yeah, but that's this weekend, and you can register here at Nothing FM on the website, or you can go to Zen Bitch Slap, which is Paul's website, where you can also find all his recordings, all his audio, all his videos, and his fantastic books. So yeah, but just try and hang out for that retreat this weekend. So next question we've got from Edresh. Edresh asks, I think that's right, how you pronounce that, Edresh. How do we know that this has been seen and we're not deluded? Good question. There is often the experience of peace and joy, but then the mind comes and says, yeah, you're experiencing this only because everything is okay now.
Yes.
Okay, move on.
So stuff appears, and the fact is everything's okay now. After a while, that becomes where you start and finish from. Instead of, I was okay, where did the peace go? Yeah. Did you ever have an epiphany or something? Sometimes people have these events where, they're going about thinking this is how it is, and then something intervenes and the whole charade seems to stop, and then there's like a joy and whatever. And then I went through a few of them, and then I noticed after a while that the epiphany ended seemingly right at the point there was a thought, I'm having an epiphany.
Okay.
So it's sort of like there's a great party, but as soon as you arrive there, it sucks. Yeah, and you're still trying to figure out how I can keep it a great party and get there. But you know what? It sucks because you're trying to get into the great party. Yeah, so the epiphany ends when there's a claiming of being the one who had the epiphany. I mean, what do you need to read 500 pages of a book just right there? Yeah. Something comes up, says it's you, and then things change. And then a ravenous drive to have it the way it was when you were absent, to have it and you can be present. It doesn't work. You're going to go on and on and on for fucking ever. You're not going to get it. You did not have anything to do with the epiphany. Yeah, you weren't there. See, that's what it calls the greatest peak moments. It wants to be present for its own absence. It doesn't work. Yeah? So the party's always going to suck when you get there. To me, that's great news. Yeah? You'll stop going there and you'll find yourself at the party. It didn't work the way I wanted it to. Well, yeah. Get used to that. Thank God things don't work the way you want them to. We'd really be screwed. A lot of this shit's happening in spite of ourselves, really. Yeah. So I don't know. I lost what was the question. What was the question?
Oh God. Shall we move on to the next one? I think you've done pretty well there with the Bond villain laugh. That was really good, mate. Shall we move on?
Yeah.
You okay? Yeah, okay. So Randy and Jill come back with another one. There is a behavior such as a thought followed by the self saying that was me deciding to think that. After the behavior has occurred, this is claiming by self. When did the Paul action figure first see that, and what led him to it?
I don't know. I don't want to have a memory when I first see it. I want to be present to seeing it. Yeah. So I don't know. I don't know when it happened.
Okay.
I just don't.
Okay.
But once you get the camera is going to see what it sees based on its location, yes?
Okay.
So instead of working so hard on the camera, trying to make it see much better than it can, let's say it's a cheap camera, if you move the location, then what it sees is different, or how it sees, yeah? So this is more like that. You recognize there's a mental condition that's is framing the show, so to speak. Yeah? So you lose interest trying to change the things that appear in the show. You realize it, trying to have cameo appearances, but the same old are the stars all the fucking time. And then something changes, and then you see it anew. Yeah? Not that the things in the frame change, but the frame has changed. Yes. And when you get relief from a framed life, it tells you about the frame. Yeah, it tells you why the relief wasn't available. That's what it does. My feeling of this whole movement is when I get relief, it tells me about why I wasn't having relief. Yeah, it informs me. So you know what I mean? It's sort of like why you weren't seeing that movie is because your big fucking head was up. Yeah, you thought it was someone else blocking you from the screen. It was you. Yeah, okay. Yeah. Now, let's say that's demonstrated 20 times, 50 times. There's a point where there's a critical mass and something gets established. Yeah, you don't need to see it. You don't need any more examples. It's obvious, yeah? So then, like in recovery, it says you sincerely take a position, then you get established in a position. It's sort of like this, yeah? So you hear the message, it brings about a certain relief, you're starting to travel lighter, yeah? And more comes from those simple statements. You can't use the Buddha to seek the Buddha. What's looking is what you're looking for. And then suddenly, and it doesn't need you even to notice, you're established there. Yeah. Now, the establishment in that position lends itself to travel lighter in the appearance of the other old conditions. That's all. So the traveling lighter doesn't come from what you're in, it comes from what you're of. Yeah. So what you're of brings the ability, it's not you, obviously, that's super clear. You see you have nothing to do with it. It's just happening through you, but something now does for you what you couldn't do for yourself. And you can ultimately say, well, it can be collected by a statement, traveling lighter. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. You can't do it, David. You're not going to travel lighter, no matter what you fucking do.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be a heaviness because you're at the party. It's going to suck in some level. Yeah? So what happens is there's a deep admittance of that, and then something starts doing through you what you can't do for yourself. Yeah? Hallelujah. Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
And the humility isn't some kind of virtue you practice. It's an obvious recognition that you have nothing fucking to do with it. That's why when you came and said, let's hear about Paul Hedderman, who wants to hear about Paul Hedderman? Fuck.
Me.
Yeah, I want the message, because, you're not going to travel lighter through Paul Hedderman. You're going to travel lighter in your own situation, yeah? By recognizing what's causing the heaviness in your life. Because you believe it's you, and then there's no possibility then for any other way except for working on it, trying to change it, rehabilitate it, yeah? But if you see it's not you, you can be, the freedom is from it now. Not based on its condition, but based on your condition. Its condition becomes irrelevant in a way. Thank God. Because most people's spiritual practices is completely based on this condition. Yeah? This isn't that at all. This becomes relegated to a humble position. Now, the conditionless condition now starts outshining the circumstances and the situations. Instead of trying to polish the circumstances and situations completely, yeah, the light comes through. You're traveling lighter, not because of you, but through you, yeah? Yeah, and it's clear and obvious.
Yeah, that's interesting. You've got me actually thinking about that, and I think we spoke before. My mother died a few months ago, actually, and I've had to if you look at it from the action figure point of view, I've had to redress a lot of stuff that happened in my childhood with her death, and it's been quite clearing for me at that level. But this seems to do a lot of the stuff that we talk about helps to fast track that. I don't know if you can relate to that.
What was the last thing you said?
But just that there seems to be a lot of clearing when I looked at the childhood sort of trauma stuff that I've been going through, and I've done a lot of work on that, and it seems to have stripped away of that. But the non-duality and the discussions and going to your discussions has helped that a lot, and it seems, and I don't exactly understand why. The computer doesn't get it, it doesn't really know, but I know it helps.
Well, that's all you need.
Yeah.
The relief isn't in itself is the value. You don't need knowledge of the relief.
Yeah.
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 Relief relief is the complete sentence. There's no there's relief. Yeah.
Sure.
Far out.
Thank you. So we've got a really good question from Sabbath. I think who's here. And Sabbath asks, and I really like this question, is there a witness or is it just another thought of the mind?
There's witnessing, and then it can be claimed, and now you have the witness. Yeah.
Ah,
But there's witnessing, there's seeing, but the mental state comes up and claims the seeing to imply the seer. Now you're stuck as a witness when all there was witnessing. You see, that's exactly how it moves. Yeah, it takes something that's happening and gives it a name and sticks it to a form. Yeah, and now you've lost the essence of what's happening, and now you have an interpretation of it as name and form. Yeah. So you move. The living of life isn't the contact point. It's life's happening to me is the contact point, which is completely interpretive. Yeah, completely. Yeah.
okay.
And there's a loss there. There is. Seemingly. There's a loss. Yeah. It's sort of like, going to the Colorado River and then bringing some of that water home and then putting it on your mantle and thinking, oh, there's the Colorado River, but you've lost the true essence, which is the rivering. Yes? Yeah. So now we get a life of interpretation, not a life of living. A life of living is easily forgot, tell you the truth.
Really?
Oh, totally. It doesn't have, its basis doesn't rely on memory, for sure. Yeah. You're just living, and as you're living, the demarcations of days and events and this was happening, and then there was a stop and something, that all gets just all those, the borderlines just fade. Yeah, there's no erasing them. They just fade, and you see the real nature, which is more like a muraling. It's just all happening, all verbing. There's no nouns to be found. This is just all made up. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, well, memory. My memory is terrible.
Here's what's happening. Everything's happening, right? Everything is usually ended with ing. They're seeing, hearing, feeling, thinking, yes? Running, walking, living, yeah? That's what's happening. Verbing in nature, only verbing. Verbing. No noun to be found. The mental state's reaction to that is to see it in a dualistic manner. So where there's a verb, there must be a noun. Yeah? That's its logic. And it's a faulty logic. And that logic non-duality cannot land there. It can't.
Okay.
You're not going to get, there's no two entering a one. There's nothing, in a sense, yes? Yeah. All that entering and leaving a post, that's all made up. We never gone anywhere. So there's a lot happening, but nothing ever happened, in a sense. Yeah. Yeah. I find that quite reassuring, but with no certainty, which is the greatest assurance is uncertainty. Yeah. I'm completely sure that it's all uncertain.
Okay.
I'm not hurting cats, you know what I mean? I know the nature of a cat, so I'm not going to hurt it. So basically, you stop looking for what can't be found, yeah? And there's just a recognition that, I don't know, it's just a constant recognizing, yeah? There's no recognition. It never ends up like that. It's just a recognizing. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So we're kind of getting into the last 10 to 15 minutes here. So, because I know you've got, there's another appointment to go to, another Zoom meeting.
Change my clothes for the next Zoom.
You're not going to get changed. I'm going to go and put my suit on for the next one.
Put my sober look. I got to put my sober look on.
Your sober cloak. Your cloak of sobriety. That's good. Yeah.
tattoos, my tracks.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Your hoodie. Yeah, good. Yeah.
I was an addict. Yes, yes.
Yeah, yeah. So a couple more questions from Annie Me
Oh,
or
we have
Annie
to
My
end
or Annie
at
My.
10:20.
Um,
10:20 end. Yeah.
say that
We'll have
again.
20 so we could go. I'll have to take a drink, then go to the recovery meeting.
Yeah, sure. So shall we finish at about 10? Is that right?
In 10 minutes. Yeah, 10:20. Give me a couple
10:20. Oh, is that what you said? I thought you were talking like 10:4, like a CB radio or something. No, I've got you.
of.
Yeah.
10:20.
Okay. Right. So Annie Mai says, if you're not there for the Epiphany, how do you know there was one? And meaning, is there an overlap between self and self?
Well, when the only way you can know of anything is when through the lens of time. So in time, there was an epiphany. Yeah, there was no time in the epiphany, but in time there was an epiphany. Yes.
Hmm.
Yeah. Time is like a very interesting lens that if it's put on the camera produces incredible effects. Yes. Time is the main ingredient of the whole magic trick, really. The whole magic trick of something that comes after. So let's say, I'm not going to go to the question exactly.
Sure.
Let's say something is happening. They're seeing, yes, right now. And then the mental state in time says the seeing is the seer. Yeah. Now it has experiences of seeing that happened long ago. Yeah. It's not the seeing itself, but the seeing was the basis of that thing. Yes. So
Hmm.
in this case, the mental state claims what's happening and then implies that there's a someone. And then that someone is presupposed before everything that's happening. I have the perfect example. When people get the idea of selfing, they'll call me up and they say, "Paul, I really got I got selfing. It's been driving me crazy all day." See, that's not it. The selfing implied a you, and now the person is speaking from the you that's being driven crazy by the selfing. Do you see it? We believe time goes, the programming is inexorably going. Yeah, it doesn't turn back on itself. There's the past, there's a present that's an intersection, and then there's the future. Yeah, the mental state doesn't play that way. The mental state implies something that comes after the seeing, hearing, feeling, tasting, and implies that that's the seer. So now the seeing is done by a mythical noun called the seer. And many of us are following that assumption and that narrative all day into a meeting or a satsang. Unbeknownst to us, we're hearing from that same format. That which comes after is hearing the message of non-duality. That's why it neuters the message of non-duality. Yes? It's like
Hmm.
the sheep and the lion. You're a lion. So you've gone to a number of lion meetings, unbeknownst to you, taking yourself to be a sheep. And you're wondering why you can't roar. You're not kicking ass. You're not getting the respect you would think a lion would get. Yeah? Because the lion is in the act of being identified as self. Yeah? As sheep. So the sheep is here and going to the meeting. The lion's actually going to the meeting, but the sheep leaves the meeting as the lion and neuters the message that it's a lion. You got to see it in your own experience. If you are that which is being described, why isn't it working? If you are all there is consciousness, all there is spirit, why isn't it getting through? Because something is claiming to be the hearer of the message. So the sheep claims to be the hearer of the lion message, so the message never gets to the lion. So we've hit a point where, screw that, let's talk to the lion about the sheep. Yeah? So that the lion finally realizes, it hears about a sheep and goes, hey, I'm not that. Yeah? So it gets that it's a lion, not by hearing that it's a lion, but by hearing it's not a sheep. That's how he gets it. Yes? That's the whole thing that drove us to give satsang. That was the whole drive. Yeah? I went to meetings. I heard all I am is consciousness, all this. But it made no sense while I was living as Paul. Yeah? It didn't. It actually was used to beat me up even more, in a sense. So suddenly I was reading Ramana Maharshi and I had this vague feeling, and I felt like what he said captured that feeling. So it's the important thing isn't to hear that I'm a lion, because I am a lion. It's to hear that I'm not a sheep because I am a lion. Yeah, that's that's the spirit of the Zoom. So yes, there was no one in the Epiphany, but time moved on. The mental state arose and claimed to be the one that wasn't there, and now says it had the Epiphany. Yes, exactly. That can only happen in time, obviously. Yeah?
Yeah.
If something was just happening, it would always be just happening. But there's a reaction in time to something that's happening that changes or interprets the happening. And it interprets it in a subject-object way. So all the verbing, there must be a noun involved. So now the seeing, hearing, feeling, tasting, touching isn't being sensed as that verb. It's being sensed that water isn't being sensed as the watering. It's being sensed as the Colorado River. Yeah. And now the noun wants to jump off bridges to feel like a verb. Wants to ride a that it's not capable of dealing with to feel like a verb. Wants to shoot coke in the neck to feel like a fucking verb. All the while, it is a verb. Yeah? It just has to see it's not a noun. It doesn't need, if it tries to get out of the noun, it's going to reinforce the noun. That's the messages. Yeah? So we got to see, are we trying to get out of a noun as a noun? All right? That's a very disarming revelation. Wow. So I can't get out of me as me. Exactly. Far out. Thank God, finally. Now you can get on with living. Why not? Now you can do the same thing every day, yet it looks different every moment. Instead of trying to make every moment look different as the same thing. It's totally different. It's just a different way to go. It's exhausting to have to do something new and different every fucking second, you know? So first you're surfing, then you got to surf with a fucking kite, then with a parachute, then I'm going to ski down. I'm going to need snow skis to go down. We just keep changing more and more, do more and more different things, but because there's the same fucking thing always looming over it. See, you're not that same thing, and you'll find an incredible difference in ordinariness. Yeah? Normalness. Yeah.
Okay.
One leads to a slavery, the other is not from slavery. It isn't. Yeah?
Okay.
Like that great statement, escape, the great wisdom of no escape. Exactly. You can't escape from an imaginary place. That's the great wisdom of no escape. There's no escape from an imaginary place. You can't get out of what you're not in. You cannot get out of what you're not in. It's impossible. The premise is we're in something, and that's where to look. That's where, there's the rub right there. Yeah?
Okay. Okay. So I think we're coming up to the end there, Paul. I think there's a couple more statements I think there's a couple of comments. but I think we'll finish it off there if that's okay. Glenn J says the Tao can be told it is not the eternal Tao. The name of that can be named is not the eternal name. The nameless is the origin of heaven and earth. Earl Gibbs says, as soon as there is an illusory sense of a self arising, the aliveness of life is totally lost. Caroline Job says she loves Paul, don't we all? Arl Gibbs says there is no knowing. The message apparently is about unknowing and being at complete ease with that. So just to say, I think we'll wrap up. I think we're going to be back here in a few weeks. I think we're going to do the same again. And you're on, this has been Nothing FM with Paul Hedderman. Much Ado About Nothing. Paul has another 4 meetings that he does on Zoom each week. If you're into 12-step recovery, he has the reflections of the 12 steps on a Tuesday and a Thursday at 10:30 a.m. Pacific time, and that's 1:30 p.m. Eastern, depending on where you are in the world. 6:30 p.m. in the UK and GMT. Also, he does 2, non-duality talks on a Wednesday and a Saturday. But you can go and find all of that at zenbitslap.com, and you'll see all his Zoom information there. Please go along. It's fantastic. And then obviously there's the retreat, which again, I'm going to give a plug, which is happening this weekend, February the 20th and 21st. You can go and register for that now on Nothing FM if you go to the website, or you can go to his zenbitslap.com again. So to get the details for that, and that's going to be exciting. You're going to get exclusive use of Paul, the Paul action figure. So Paul, do you want to say your goodbyes now, mate?
Yeah, I'd like to say, hey, Dave, thank you for everything, Dave.
My pleasure, mate.
Yeah. And we got Randy and Jill. Always nice to see you from Nashville. Yasmin, it's a pleasure to see you.
Nice to see you. Thanks.
Nice to meet you, honey.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah. Roman, as always. Yeah. We got Victoria. Is that Victoria? Hey, how nice to meet you. We got Tim Nickel, Tim N. Always a pleasure. Tariq from Dover, New Jersey. Nice to see you. We got Marina from Germany, not Amsterdam. Yes, I got it now. And Dimitri, if you ever go to the website, Dimitri and Julie were the ones that did it, and it's a masterpiece, I think. Johannes, as always. We got Mark from Vermont. We got a lot of nothing things here. More nothing.
A whole lot of nothing.
Yeah, so Eric and Eva and Rob, and not seeing you, I see you. Thank you very much for this opportunity. I think we'll be back in a month, or it could be this may be the only time it ever happened. All right. Thanks, Dave.
No worries. Thanks very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
See you.
Paul.
See you in a minute, Paul. See you later.
Yeah, I'll be there in a little minute. Yeah.
So will I. All right.
Thank you, Paul.
See you.
Thank you, Paul and Dave.
No worries. Pleasure, Julie. Nice to see you. Thanks, Emerson. Thanks very much, everyone.
Thanks so much.
Okay.